thanks to Gifty for holding the fort so far. She will be back to finish up. Meanwhile, time for the sport here on The Pulse. I'm Gary Al Smith, and a couple of hours ago, there was an official tweet from the Ghana Football Association account on Twitter that informed the world that George Afriyie, the vice president, had been, as they put it, released of his duties. That was the word. Probably wanted to write relieved, but probably in the haste to announce the news, they didn't get it right. What is not in doubt, however, is that a man once very powerful, once rising through the ranks, and that is the tweet, Mr. George Afriyie has been released of his duties as the vice president of the Ghana Football Association following a meeting of the executive committee. A new vice president will be announced soon. With myself and Hans Mensah Andor in studio will explain what some of those key terms in there mean. First of all, how does a vice president of a football association simply get relieved of duty? So, Hans, welcome.
Thank you, Gary.
Now, that's the question that for a lot of people who don't understand the intricacies of football, how does a vice president just get removed like, you know, like cassava, as they put it?
Okay, so let me take you back to the year 2005 when the position of the vice president of the Ghana Football Association originally was voted for.
It was called vice chairman at the time.
Vice chairman at the time. And then Kwesi Nyantakyi, with the backing of George Afriyie, managed to run it through Congress to get it changed to a position where Nyantakyi himself, or the president of the Ghana Football Association, simply handpicks somebody to become his vice. And
so just to recap, the vice chairman used to be an elected position. And also, at the time, the head of the Ghana League Clubs Association automatically became the vice president of the Ghana Football Association. It was a way for the entire system to ensure that there were checks and balances, which is why at the time people said that Ghana football, especially the Ghana Premier League, was powerful because the president could not do as he wanted anytime.
So that is changed. Essentially means that once the man can handpick you to become his vice, he can equally tell you at any time to move from that position, and then he handpicks another person. So it's that simple. I mean, if he can appoint you out of his own volition, he can equally, dismiss you.
In this case, why would Kwesi Nyantakyi do that?
Well, it all comes down to the upcoming Ghana Football Association elections in 2019, next year. George Afriyie has declared his intention to stand for election for that position. Nyantakyi is yet to really declare his intention as to whether he's going to stand for election or not. But from all indications, it does appear that he will be standing. Now,
for the record, he has stated 5 separate times that he won't contest.
He won't be contesting.
Which is why George Afriyie then said that I will
threw
contest.
in his heart that he was going to contest. From all indications, from where we stand now, it appears that Kwesi Nyantakyi will be contesting. Now, I've got 2 sources telling me 2 things are likely to happen in the coming days. One, that there is going to be a story that will break that the Regional Football Association chairman are asking Kwesi Nyantakyi to stand for re-election.
They are begging him to come back.
Yes, so it's a case of Nyantakyi doesn't want to contest, but the Regional Football Association chairpersons are asking Kwesi Nyantakyi to stand for re-election. So that is one side of it. I'm still monitoring events to see what is going to happen. And then 2, Nyantakyi himself is going to come out and announce that he'll be standing for re-election.
Because people say he should stand.
Exactly.
Right, that's the classic.
One of 2 things are going to, either way, both will happen, but one will precede the other.
Sure. So it's an either-or situation, and that's the background to why George Afriyie has been removed. Just to recap, a couple of weeks ago, on his 50th birthday, at a party here in Accra, he announced to the gathering of football people, all the bigwigs were there, and he announced that because Kwesi Nyantakyi has said that he won't run for next year's election, he, George Afriyie, would like to put his hat in the ring. He also mentioned that he thinks that he has the blessing of Kwesi Nyantakyi, but in the ensuing weeks, there was no statement from Nyantakyi, and the silence grew so loud that it became quite clear that there was something wrong. The interesting bit, as you will see on my Joy Online in our story, is that at George Afriyie's 50th birthday party, Kwesi Nyantakyi's first wife was there. And that signal was interpreted at the time as meaning that he had the blessing of the FA president. Apparently not.
Well, clearly not, as things stand. Now, what I'm also picking up is that the reason, the official reason that they are ascribing to this has to do with the timing of George Afriyie's announcement that he was going to stand for election. At the time, the FA was in court against Great Olympics regarding that commencement of the Ghana Premier League injunction. And they feel that it wasn't the right time for him to have announced that he was going to stand for election as FA president. So that is the basis, you know, the official basis that they are standing on to push him aside as it stands now. But it's going to be really interesting in the coming days. The two things I've mentioned, if the story breaks that the Regional Football Association chairperson is asking Kwesi Nyantakyi to stand for re-election against his will, and Nyantakyi himself declaring that he's going to contest.
Okay,
yeah.
But isn't there a bit of truth in the fact that Kwesi Nyantakyi and George Afriyie themselves were having issues? At least one of them has confirmed in the last few weeks that, yes, they had a bit of issues, but says that they have smoothed them over. Couldn't this be then validation of that widely held view that we know? Absolutely.
For me, I expected this. You know, it's just the timing that's taking me a bit by surprise. I did expect that at a point, George Afriyie wasn't going to be vice president of the Ghana Football Association. You have to look at the entire situation. Nyantakyi declaring that he wasn't going to contest. If you look at his posture in recent times, the fact that George Afriyie has called him out publicly to come and reiterate that stance that he wasn't going to contest, and the fact that he's failed to do that speaks to me that he has intention, you know, of standing. So you look at the general atmosphere around this whole Ghana Football Association presidential election, and it tells you that a lot of things are not right. But I think that they are playing the political game, trying to tell the public that all is well. But those of us who know better do know better.
Also, important to note that historically, Kwesi Nyantakyi has formed. Also, the important thing, I think, is that he is a student of the game of politics. He has learned it properly. This is a man that became GFA boss at the age of 35. The age of 35 is typically, whether in politics or football, the time when people are starting their careers. That is when, after 10 years of being in the game, so Kwesi Nyantakyi started being in football at the age of about 24, 25. By 35, he was an experienced hand. He became the youngest in the country's history to become GFA president. One of the first things he moved to do, like Hans said at the beginning of his introduction, was to make sure that that role was taken out, because he knew there will come a point where he may become unpopular and he may need to move the chess pieces in a certain way. So Hans will now tell us, is this the first time that Kwesi Nyantakyi has removed his vice president after appointing them?
Nope.
Is this the second?
No.
Third?
Not the third.
About the third?
Okay. This is not the third.
No, so the third one died.
Okay, yes.
So
Jordan
this
and
is the third.
So this essentially is the third. But we are looking at Fred Quintel, Fred Papo, and then George Afriyie as it stands now. But there are several people within the Ghana Football Association sector who in the past have fallen out with him and have found themselves out of whatever position that they held at the Ghana Football Association. So I'm not really surprised. Like I said, I expected this to happen. It's just the timing of it that's taking me a bit by surprise.
Like Hans said, the history shows that Kwesi Nyantakyi knows how to do this and move this.
It's not only within the Ghana football setup. Like if you remember what happened during the CAF elections, when everyone thought he was in the corner of Issa Hayatou, you know, he performed a maneuver that took a lot of people by surprise, and he's actually credited as one of the people who spearheaded Ahmad's ascension to the head of Africa's football governing body.
So, in 2006, Fred Papo became the vice president of the Ghana Football Association because he was chosen as what they call an emergency committee member by Kwesi Nyantakyi, obviously. After the World Cup, they fell out, and he was, you know, pushed aside because he couldn't make it onto the emergency committee in a move widely regarded to have been orchestrated by Nyantakyi himself. So Fred Papo was pushed out. After that, Jordan Anagla came into power, but he then got ill in February of 2012, and by mid-June of 2012, he sadly passed away after treatment in South Africa could not help him. Fred Krentel became the acting head of the vice presidency side of the Ghana Football Association. His deal was ratified in September of 2012, but he also, after the next election and after the next electoral process, could not be given a position, and so that is how George Afriyie became the vice president of the GFA. Things have come to a head. George Afriyie, last year especially, had some qualms with Kwesi Nyantakyi, and in a leaked audio tape, he was held to have called Kwesi Nyantakyi greedy. That was the beginning of his end. We'll see how that pans out going forward. Hans, your final words?
Well, George has fallen on his own sword to the extent
what's his future looking like?
Well, now, some people feel that there's a wrong step taken by Kwesi Nyantakyi or the Ghana Football Association, and that it is going to help George to garner some sympathy vote. I don't know to what extent that is true, but it does set the stage rather nicely for what will happen in the lead up to the Ghana Football Association presidential election in 2019. 2019
elections, we'll be watching out for it here on the JoyNews channel. I'm Gary Al Smith. Many thanks to Hans Mensah and for giving us the insight